Everybody liked it better now that we went shouting through the house, playing hide-and-go-seek, and sliding down the banisters. Only during the afternoons, when Grocie was taking a nap, Papa asked us to be quiet. Try to keep it down to a dull roar for just 2 hours, dears, he told us. Your grandmother really needs her rest. Our godmothers waited on us hand and foot, and we began to enjoy and even revel in the attention. They were willing to drop anything to amuse us, to play games with us, to help us plant a flower garden, to paste in our scrapbooks, to collect California seeds, which we intended to plant in our yard when we returned home. They took us to the movies, on sightseeing tours to Chinatown in San Francisco, and away for weekends at their summer cottage at Inverness. It seemed natural now for them to call us dears, and we began to return the salutation without sarcasm or affectation. When dear Aunt Gertrude had herself hospitalized because she was afraid she was coming down with whooping cough and didn't want to infect us, we mourned her departure almost as if she had been mother herself. Bill, meanwhile, had found a devoted friend and ally in the kitchen, where Chu Wang's word was law. Chu Wang was set in his ways and unamenable to suggestion. He was sinister-looking and uncommunicative, and had a terrible temper. He understood English fairly well, except when someone tried to criticize him or tell him what to do. In such cases, he launched into hissing Chinese, brandished skillets, and then turned his back and walked away. He was a wonderful cook. It was tacitly understood in the Moeller family that the less one knew about his cooking methods and what he put into the food, the better for all concerned. Of the Moellers, only Aunt Eleanor, who planned the menus, ventured into the kitchen. We children were advised to keep out of it unless we wished to invoke oriental wrath, die in agony from some exotic poison, touch off a tongue war, or go through life with the responsibility of harikiri hanging over our heads. Although aware of the possible consequences, Bill couldn't resist the smell of cakes and pies, and began to spend a good deal of his time in the kitchen. At first, Aunt Eleanor would hustle him out, but Chu Wang had taken a liking to him, and sulked when Bill was removed. Whenever Chu Wang sulked, his cooking suffered, and it finally was decided to allow Bill the run of the kitchen. Chu Wang outdid himself then with the meals that he served up, and the kitchen rang with pidgin English and cackling laughter. Please now, Blily, open mouth. Hi, 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 hi. Good boy, Blily. We questioned Bill about what he opened his mouth for. He told us that when Chu Wang iced a cake, he put the frosting in a cornucopia made of newspaper, bit off the end, and squeezed the frosting onto the cake. At intervals, Bill would open his mouth and the cornucopia would be inserted. When the rest of us dropped into the kitchen to get a turn at the business end of the cornucopia, Chu Wang drove us out with a skillet, while he and Bill screamed with laughter. Hi, 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 hi. Sometimes, when Bill got into mischief in the kitchen, Chu Wang scolded him, picked him up, and threatened to put him in the oven. The cook opened the oven door and put Bill partway in it, where he could feel the heat on his face. Glad boy, Blily. Putty in oven and cookie brown and eaty. Hi, hi, hi. Bill knew it was a game, but it used to scare him, and he struggled and kicked. One afternoon, Chu Wang opened the oven door and was leaning in on tiptoe to see whether a cake was browning on all sides. Bill crept up behind him, placed a shoulder against his rear, and hunched. Then he held him there. Glad boy, Wang, he said in a sing-song imitation of the cook. Blily putty in oven and cookie brown and eaty. Hi, 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 hi. Aunt Eleanor was in the pantry and heard the conversation and Chu Wang's screams. By the time she rushed into the kitchen, the cook had extricated himself, had both hands under the cold water faucet, and was squealing with rage. Other Moellers and Gilbreths converged on the kitchen from various parts of the house. Since she was responsible for the kitchen, Aunt Eleanor decided it was up to her to take Bill to task. Billy Gilbreth, she said almost sternly, you haven't behaved like a gentleman. The visit came to an end, and we put on our traveling clothes and climbed again into the limousines. We were accustomed to them now, and we didn't hesitate to roll down the windows, put out our hands, and tell roadhogs what we thought of them. The Mullers didn't seem to mind. They seemed to enjoy it. Even Henriette, still at rigid attention, grinned when hands popped out as he wheeled his car sedately around the corners. We said goodbye on the station platform. It didn't seem sissy to Bill to be kissed now. He returned the kisses. We got on the train and pressed our noses against the glass. One thing I can't get over, Anne said. They really hate to see us go. Imagine, they're crying just as hard as we are. The train pulled out of the station, and Mother did her best to cheer us up. I didn't bring a single sterno can with me, she said. Things will be much better going home than they were coming out. Lil's foot is all better, and I don't think Freddie's going to be sick any more. We can go into the diner and... Whoop! Martha coughed. Whoop! Whoop! You don't suppose that child's caught whooping cough, do you? Mother asked. Let me feel your forehead. By the time we reached Salt Lake City, all 7 of us had whooping cough. Our berths couldn't be made up, and no one in the same car with us got much sleep. Dad had managed to obtain leave from Fort Sill and surprised us by boarding the train at Chicago. He helped with a bucket and mop Mother had borrowed from the porter and brought us soup heated over recently acquired sterno cans. Thank you, Daddy dear, we told him. Daddy dear, he said. Daddy dear? Well, I guess I ought to send you kids to California every summer. Not with me, you don't, Mother put in. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed seeing the dear folks. But the next time, you take the children out west, and I'll go to war. And that is the end of Chapter 9, and tomorrow night we will continue with Chapter 7. Have a good night, everyone.